Okay, we're here with Grandma Melba again. We're doing the second part of episode 2 of the podcast, which is when, where, and with whom it all started. The first part we went through, we went through her mother, father, grandparents, and all that history, some of that history, and we talked a little bit about the brothers and sisters. We got their names in there. And so what we're going to do this episode is we're going to talk about the brothers and sisters and a little bit of background, maybe the year they were born, grandma, their wife, and maybe their kids we could mention, and then maybe some on each one, if you could just some memories of them, of each of your brother and sister, and we'll go from there. But first, the introductions. I'm Lonnie Jordan, and we got Brianna joining us today. She was in town, so I told her come with us, and she's with us. And then, again, the angel herself, Grandma Mel. We're just going to get started, but like I said, if we can just talk, Grandma, maybe a little bit about your brothers and sisters, and then the year they were born, and their wife or their spouse, and maybe their children, and then maybe some memories of each of them, and then go from there. Aunt Fern, right, was the oldest, if you want to start with Aunt Fern.
Aunt Fern was the oldest of my mother's and father's children.
We're talking about...
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was born in 1913, and I can barely remember her having lived at home, because she was 14 years older than I was, and she got married pretty young. She married a high school friend, Raymond Harris, and it seems like they got married in February, but I'm not positive of that. But anyway, then they had, their children were Keith, was the oldest one. He was only 6 years younger than I. And then there was Marvine and Rodney. And they worked out of a Clabateau trading post for a while. Then they ran a laundry over in Grants for a while.
They were in Grant? I didn't know that.
They were just in Grants.
I
don't know how long they were there, but they were there for a while. And it was after my father died, because I went over there and stayed with him a little while. And my sister Wanda was over there. Wanda and Golden both went to high school over there in Grant. And then this next one was Charles, and he was born in 1915, and
2 years difference.
Yes, and he married Verda Walker, but he was a little bit older when he married her. But then right after they got married, they went to California, because that was during the war, and they worked at I don't know if they worked at the shipyard or the airplane factory, but they worked out there.
That was in
That was out in California.
Was it in San Diego?
Oh, they lived in Glendale.
Okay. I do remember stories about that yeah. I remember a lot about Fern and Raymond.
They were out there too as well.
So did Charles... So you say he was older when he married Verda?
Yes, a little bit.
So did he have any... He wasn't married before then?
No.
And did he have any girlfriends? I'm sure he had girlfriends, but...
If he did, I didn't know any of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were quite a bit younger than him.
Yes.
Too, so I didn't realize, yeah.
And Charles, there again, I can't remember him having been at home or having lived with me. I don't remember him being around the house that much. When kids got older, teenagers, they left the home a little bit to try to work
back then, especially.
Yeah. So he was here and there for a while, and then he came back and he became friends with Riley and
the Walkers. Yeah.
The Walkers, and
very musically talented.
Yes, he was, and so that's why he was very interested, and Riley would play his guitar and sing. And then, like I say, when he married Verda, they moved out to California. So then Vernon Raymond and Charles and Verda all lived out there in California. And I went out a few times to visit them. And then the next one was Alice. And she was born, let's see, probably 17.
So 13. Okay, so there was 2 years apart between them.
Yes.
Okay.
And she married Cleo Biggs. And they had, their oldest daughter was Beverly Ann. Then they had Pauline, and Cleona, and Douglas, and Amy.
So
And
Amy was the youngest?
Amy was the youngest.
Okay.
And they were, Cleo worked at the trading post out by Crown Point for some time, and they worked at different trading posts. And then Cleo went into the Navy, and he served in the Navy for probably a couple of years. And then when he got back, they again went to the reservation, and they were out there for quite a while. Then they moved back into town and lived in that, down there,
Same place.
same place.
I see, and I can't. What year did Cleo die? Because I don't remember him.
You don't remember him?
I
He worked
just
for
don't.
Phil on the farm for
So
quite
he
a while.
must have died when I was either early 70s or because I would obviously I remember Alice, but
He died. Let's see. I wasn't there when he died. I had taken a group of young women, and we'd gone on a bus tour with following the Mormon people as in their travels. And we were back. Actually, I think we were in New York City at that time, and
wow.
and so I wasn't at home when he passed away.
No,
And that was probably in 1970. I'm going to make a pretty good guess of 1978, but might have been the 77 or.
yeah, and which that kind of would make sense because I just don't remember him at all. All I ever remember Alice is just being Alice. I didn't know nothing about him, so that's probably very accurate.
Yeah,
Because I would have been really young.
yeah, and he always smoked and drank, and then all of a sudden he just threw them all away and started going back to church. And one time Alice went to the bishop, and that was Miles Jones, I think, and she went to the bishop and asked for a recommend, and she wanted to go to temple, and he said, "You can get the recommend, but I don't suggest you go to temple. I suggest you wait for your husband." And so she was very upset about that, but then she was happy she did when he made his decision to throw away his cigarettes and his bad habits,
Yeah, I know
and
them.
went back to church, and they went to the temple. And then he had an aneurysm, and that's what caused his death. And he was just sitting at the table this one day and said to Alice, "I've got an extreme pain in my stomach." And they got him I don't know if they got him to the doctor or the doctor showed up there. I don't know which it was, but anyway, then he didn't live very long.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna jump off.
Okay.
You got to explain this trip to New York in this bus because of that. I'm gonna.
That's far.
Yeah, that's a long ways, and I've never heard nothing about this.
Okay.
We're gonna have to jump into that a little bit.
All right. It was when Brooke was a teenager. And do you remember Lorraine T?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. She was the Young Women's president, I
Could
think.
sing too. Could sing.
And she planned a trip for those girls to go on that bus trip back to the east. And then in the meantime, she got pregnant, and she couldn't go. And so she asked me if I would go, and I said, I talked to Phil about it, and he said, go ahead. And so I told him I would go, and so it was Brooke, and then, of course, Darla. If Brooke was going to go, Darla had to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure
Yeah.
Darla was there too. They were
So,
tit and tat back
yeah.
in the day, for sure.
So it was Brooke and Darla and, Dina. Do you remember Dina?
Yep, I
Not,
do.
I don't mean Keith's Dina.
No, I remember the blonde girl, Dina.
Uh-huh.
What was her last name? I can't remember. I
But
do
she's
remember
Jana
her.
Dean's daughter.
Yeah, okay, I do remember.
Okay, and then she went, and Bloomfield.
Which Bloomfield would that have been? Which one? I'm not sure on that one. Would have been a president? No, that
No, you know the ones that live up on the corner up there, Jay Bloomfield and them.
Right.
It was, in fact, it was.
So it was President Bloomfield's sister then, right? Would it-
No, I think it was Glenn Bloomfield's daughter.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't
Okay,
remember
and
her name.
she went with us.
Oh, cool.
And so it was just myself and those, let's see how many girls, Brooke
Darla.
and Darla and
Dina?
Dina and Rayette was her name.
Oh, okay.
Rayette Bloomfield.
Huh.
And we went with a bunch of, everybody else on the bus was adults. And some of them older adults. I was probably the youngest adult. And I was a little bit less than 50 when I went. And so we went to Salt Lake and got on a bus and headed out, and we went
Where at in New York did you go, Grandma? Do you remember?
to New York City,
Oh, to New York City. Oh, wow.
and we went also to Niagara Falls
Oh, cool.
and back through Kansas City, and
That's a jaunt right there. It
Yeah.
took, from here, it was 32 hours to South Carolina. So that'd probably,
I think
40,
we were
over
gone.
40
I think we
hours.
were gone for a week, maybe 10 days.
that was a lot of driving in
Yeah.
that amount of time.
And they were, the kids, I think the girls enjoyed it very much. And
That's cool.
then when we came back, we went through Denver. And when we stopped in Denver, then I called Phil, and he met me in Denver, and he rode with us the rest of the way to Salt Lake. And then I had my car up there, and we drove home in my car.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, sorry. I heard that and I was like, okay, I need to hear that story. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were at Alice.
And the next one is Wanda. And Wanda spent a lot of time away from home. She went to school in Salt Lake, stayed with my uncle, and went to school in Salt Lake, and she went to school in Grants, and she didn't spend a lot of time at home. I can remember a little bit when I was really young, but I can remember one time we were at a church dance, and she talked me into, I was a real little girl, and she talked me into going over there and asking one of her boyfriends to dance with me. And so I went over there and asked him, and he wouldn't, and I was bawling and squalling, and she took me and she promised, okay, if you won't cry anymore, if I get a doll for Christmas, you can have it. And I said, okay, so I didn't cry anymore.
Did she give you the doll? At
She
Christmas?
gave me the doll at Christmas.
She held her word.
Yeah.
That's cool. Aunt Wanda, I don't remember hardly very
I
little
know.
about Aunt Wanda.
I know.
No,
No, she
I-
wasn't hardly ever around anywhere where you guys would know her, but
Yeah, I don't.
she married a man by the name of Russell Ashleman. And they lived in California most of the time. They did move back to Kirtland in that area. About the time just before Phil and I moved back from Gallup to Kirtland. And they had 3 children. I didn't tell you Charles. Alice, I told you about Alice's
Right.
kids, and Charles only had Caitlin.
Caitlin, right.
And then Wanda had Kathy and Gina and Alan.
I didn't know them.
No,
No.
no, because they didn't ever live around there
No.
close.
Later in life, so did her husband? Did he die?
He died, but quite a bit later. He worked for Smoke Garage for a while.
Oh, okay. Because she lived in Pagosa later in life. I
Later
do
in
remember
life, she
that.
lived in Pagosa.
Right, okay.
And then the next girl was named Julia. And she was a little baby. And have you heard the story about Julia? Have you heard the story about Julia?
No.
Tell us.
Tell us it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk,
Okay.
talk a little bit about
Julia was a tiny baby, and it was the 4th of July. Excuse me. And all the kids were at the celebration they were having, and my dad and mama were at home with Julia. And they had just moved into the house they were living in, and I don't know where that was. And they hadn't put things away properly. And the little girl got into the bedroom or wherever that was, and she got a bottle of acid and took a big swig of it. And of course, that was the end of her. And they called the doctor, and the doctor came clear from Farmington. But when he got down there by the Hog's Back, excuse me, the river was flooded, and he couldn't get across. And he couldn't drive across, and he walked across, and they'd carried the baby to meet him. And he said if I'd have been right there when it happened, I couldn't have saved her. So she passed away, and she was I think she's only a year and a half or something like that.
That's devastating.
Yeah, and my mom was just devastated because she felt guilty. And so my sister Fern said that my mom would walk the floor all night long and just be crying, and she couldn't sleep. And she said that my mom told her that this one night she was walking the floor, and a voice said to her, "Mom, she's all right. She's with me and she's all right." And my mom had lost 2 other children. And so when she heard that voice, then she made her feel good, and she realized that the baby was okay, and so she didn't have to worry about it anymore. And then the next one was my brother Golden. You guys probably all knew him.
Yep, I remember.
And he was born Wanda was born in 19, and so Julia was probably born in 21 or 22, and Golden was born in 25. And he went to Granson, went through high school in Granson, lived with our half-sister. Her name was Violetta. And when he graduated from high school, then he went out to California as well. And he fell in love with a young girl, and she was a good Mormon girl, and she decided she wanted to go on a mission, and so he decided he would go on a mission as well. And he came out and lived with Phil and I. We lived at Hunters Point, and he came and lived with us for a while, and then he prepared himself to go on a mission. He was almost too old to go because he's getting close to 25 years old. And so then he went on a mission, and he was called to go to Kentucky. And while he was there, he met Vio. And she was a musical girl, and Golden was musical, and so she appealed to
She
him
could
greatly. Yeah.
sing.
Oh, yeah.
She was very. I was pretty young, but because I remember when she started to get sick, but she was a pretty lady. She could sing, and
Play the piano.
yeah, play the piano
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
I do have good memories of Golden, and some of the other. Yeah, the Golden Store is still called. Everyone still calls it. Anyone from Kirtland calls the store down in Fruitland.
Fruitland.
Yeah, in that area, it calls it Golden's because that's what it was.
Yeah. And he was a good cook, and he was funny as he could be. And he worked with Phil and Phil's brothers in the Fouts Trading Company in Gallup. And then when we all moved away from there, he moved away too and came over to the valley there. And that's when he started up his businesses. But he was a real character. He could tell some funny jokes, but...
And that store, and before the actual store was down there in that same area, I do remember he had that little cafe. It was like a 50s style.
Yeah.
I remember it like a shake shop 50s. It was pretty. It was really cool.
Hamburger
And-
stand.
Yeah, and he could cook, and Uncle Charles could.
They were both good cooks.
Oh, they could take a turd off of the ground and make it taste wonderful, and that is not
Well,
kidding.
I might take exception. But
Yeah, but-
they were both good cooks, and
There you are.
and Aunt Berta was a good cook too, though. But Vio didn't care if Golden cooked every meal, so.
Yeah, she
And,
didn't seem like that type.
She just liked to play the piano and sing.
And then Golden's kids, talk about them because they were. I remember them very musical too. Shane, anyway. I think.
Sydney was very musical.
Yeah,
as
he was
well.
the same, right.
Sydney and Lisa and Shane.
Yep. And Lisa could sing too.
Lisa could sing.
And she reminded me a lot of her mom.
Yes, I don't ever see her, but
Yeah. But go ahead, Grandma, with Golden. Did not now. For some
Well,
reason.
He met Vio back in Kentucky, and then he finished out his mission and came home. And in the meantime, Vio had moved down to Arizona, and so I think she was actually engaged to somebody else that she had met. It was a guy from Flora Vista, and so then Golden, he asked if he could borrow our car, and he took our car and headed for Arizona. And first thing we knew, he was calling and saying he was married. He went down there and grabbed
Talked her
Vio.
into it.
Yeah, talked her into marrying him. So
I didn't know that
they
one. I
went
didn't
off
hear
and
that.
got married, and then they came on back and worked out there at Hunters Point for us for a while. And we had the Faust Trading Company in Gallup, and now all the guys worked together, and they each had a trading post they were over, and so they had a lot of fun. And right now here in the place, Dwayne Wynn, do you
Yeah, I know Dwayne.
okay, he was
And
our
Dean. I knew Dean better, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Dwayne was our bookkeeper over there in Gallup, so
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, what do you?
And you were the young, and obviously Grandma was the youngest we know when she was born and stuff. But I do a couple things because I have, and we'll talk a little bit about what they did later in life. Like when I say Fern, automatically I say Raymond. They were married, and in the community down there, that's just the way it was. Because they were always together later in life because they had a little.
They were always together.
Yeah, and it was like you say, if Fern and Raymond, it was just the way it was. And
Yeah.
Fern and Raymond had a little junk store up on the main road in Kirtland, as long as I can remember. That's what I remember them doing forever with Rodney, obviously.
Yeah.
And I have some great memories of that.
Yeah,
They.
You can pull it down.
Yeah, you can pull it down a little bit. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. But that store up there, I have a lot of memories of that store
yeah,
up there.
Yeah,
And they did, and Fern would sew, and she
And
was
they-
very good at upholstery stuff.
yeah.
huh?
They upholstered quite a bit. Yeah,
Yeah, they would get old furniture and they would upholster it. And I remember Raymond and Rodney just going and they'd go gather stuff and they would fix it up and they would sell it.
yeah,
It was, I remember that as a kid.
yeah.
And some things I remember about Aunt Alice.
She lived alone for.
So many years.
Yeah, so-
And I remember as a kid, I was less than a good kid, let's put it that way. And she wanted to put a knot in my head more than anything. Because actually, she was our neighbor when I was about 8 when we moved right across the field from the Biggs family. And Alice was right there. And I think more than times than not, she wanted to put a knot in my head because we were running across the field or riding our
If
bike
she'd
at
have
her
wanted
house.
to, she would have.
She couldn't catch me, Grams.
Oh.
That's why. Or she would have. But that's all I remember about Alice is because, like I said, I don't remember her husband at all. I was
Yeah.
just too young.
Yeah,
And then when it got to Wanda, like I said, I don't remember her at all.
yeah,
And the thing with Golden and Uncle Charles is just, I just vividly remember how they could cook like crazy, just absolutely really good, and they were very musical. They were very talented.
yeah.
How old was Golden? Because I just don't remember him later. So how old was Golden when he died? He
He
just
died. He died in 97.
Okay.
And Charles died in 96.
Yeah, I do remember it was just not, they were pretty close. I do remember that.
So he was born in 25, so
Yeah.
how old would he have been?
So he would have been 74? Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 74.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in there, but that was the weird part to me because Charles was a bit older and he died a year before him.
I know.
So
Yep.
Charles was
And they both had the
80
same
something.
thing.
Yeah. It was cancer,
Cancer.
right? Yeah, they both died from cancer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that. But I remember that restaurant and we would ride our bikes down everywhere and riding it down there and I just remember that food in there. I just remember that little restaurant there and it must have been the early 80s, probably mid 80s when they tore that restaurant down and built that.
Convenience store there.
It might have been later than that. I
Yeah.
don't exactly remember, but
But they still.
actually the convenience store, I think they built it and the restaurant was behind it still, wasn't it, for a little while or no?
Maybe. I can't remember.
I can't remember either. And we were just down in that area because Grandpa had farms down in Waterflow that we went down to. And I just have a lot of just great memories about the area. And just, like I said, I was less than a great young man, but I just have a lot of great memories of that community. And they were a big part of it. Fern and Raymond Raymond was the bishop at one time. Was he in the stake president? I know he's the stake patriarch. Was he in the stake presidency ever?
No.
No, I don't. Okay, but I remember him as a patriarch when he got older, and he was a bishop. And the community and just Fern and Raymond in that community were just. It was awesome. They were a huge part of the community. I know, as were Golden and they were all big parts of the community down there.
I remember when my mom had gotten old and she had lived part of the time with Fern and part of the time with Alice. And I think it was Ryan that wanted her to live with them because he'd like to sit by her and rub her hands. He thought her hands were so soft.
See, and I do have, because I remember Grandma Pearl at Fern's house. I distinctly remember going over there and see her. And that was probably me rubbing her hands.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'll bet you it was because I remember I loved her to death. She was just 4 foot, 4 foot. She was 4 foot. She was just very small and just her hands, she has those hands, just beautiful hands. And she was the same way. And I remember.
I don't know how they could have been beautiful. They were working hands.
I know that, and she was, yeah. How many kids did she raise? 7?
She gave birth to 9.
Yeah, but she raised the other
raised
7, right?
7, plus helped raise her dad's first kids.
So
Her
that's-
husband's first kids, the last 2 or 3 of them.
So, you're talking 18, 19 kids that just very hardworking, taking care of, back in those days. And so when Fern got married, she was probably 16, 15?
No, she's probably 18.
Was she?
18 or
Back in those days, that was a common thing.
It
That's what they
was,
did.
but
They got married young.
Alice got married younger than that, but Fern was 18 or 19.
Right. So, what memories do you have of your brothers and sisters when you were littler? And we'll talk more about this when we get into your childhood.
Fern gave me haircuts. She was the barber in the family, and I was scared to death of Cleo for some reason, but he didn't ever hurt me or anything like that. I can remember one day I was over in front of their house, and I was going with some kids. There was a carnival in town, and I was going, but I had no money, and can't remember who I was riding with. But when we got ready to go, he came out and gave me $1, and oh my goodness, I thought I'd been died and gone to heaven. And he was grumpy when he scared me. But I didn't ever live with them, but I did live with Alice when Cleo was in the Navy. I lived with her quite a bit then.
Oh, I didn't know that. Now, all the brothers and sisters, and we'll talk a little bit about this, were they all active members of the church, or I don't.
All except Wanda.
Okay, that's what I don't remember Golden as much. Obviously, I know Charles and Fern and Raymond,
Yeah.
but I knew Wanda probably. But
She was
and
at
Golden,
a time and then not.
huh?
But she was off and on.
What Wanda was?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Golden, ever since he came back off his mission, he was active in the church.
See, and you taught, and that's something
You probably
I
didn't even
know-
know he went on a mission.
No, I did know that, Grandma, because
you?
now that I think about it, because I knew his wife was from Kentucky, and that's how he met her. So
Yeah.
the more I think about it, I was like, yeah, I did know that, because that's how he met her, and she was from Kentucky. Because you could tell she was not from this area.
Oh, no.
Just talking to her, you knew she had that Southern charm. She was the Southern belle, I guess you call it, or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I do remember that. But I have some good memories of your brothers and sisters. Just, we were fortunate to have them all in the community. And I guess I didn't realize how there was so much background in the trading post. I knew Grandpa obviously did, but I didn't know everyone else had worked in that for some time either. And everyone knows that Grandma, I don't know about now, but Grandma and Grandpa, and even my Uncle Joe and Uncle Blaine, I think, were pretty fluent in Navajo. I know Grandma was, and Grandpa really was very fluent in Navajo. I don't know about anyone else.
You're
but
talking about me, or
yeah, you and Grandpa Phil were very fluent too.
yeah, he thought he was.
He thought, okay, I had to believe it because I didn't know any better, I guess. Grandma could speak. I remember at the pawn shops, Grandma talking to him, and
I can speak Navajo, but Phil could speak better than I could. But
yeah,
didn't
and
wanna
even
admit
Joe
it.
and even Joe and Blaine could do a little.
Yeah, a little
They could
bit.
hold their own. Because I remember you teaching me about the coins, and I still remember the Nakiao, and I still remember some of the coins, and I can still carry conversation up at the old on the res. Yeah, and that's just comes from being around. And I have a lot of memories going out on the trading post with Grandpa, Denahoso and Chelchembato, and when he had that Crown Point. And so, yeah, there's a lot of good memories. But I didn't realize that your brothers that they hadn't done any work. I didn't know
well,
that.
not Charles.
Charles didn't, but Golden did?
did.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was funny when Golden first started working at the trading post, and he would try to speak Navajo, and those Navajos would just die laughing. He'd say, yeah, okay, it was, if the Navajos would want to know how much they had left that they could spend, and they'd say, Toquitsi. And so Golden would say, Toquitsi. And those Navajos would just die laughing.
But I do remember as a kid and watching some of them, like the ones that knew Grandma and Grandpa and my uncle, just knew the family history there. It didn't surprise. But I would occasionally, I can remember some of them coming in there and them talking Navajo to them, and they just surprised them like, oh, okay. But I have great memories of that. But
Remember my having had Maggie live with me for a
oh, I remember. I never forget Maggie and I'll never forget George, her husband, and he was what they call a Galani, which is he liked that fire juice, I guess you could say, and he
Yeah.
was always at the pawn shop and the laundry. I remember him up there. Oh, I loved Maggie though. Yeah, I remember Maggie for sure. Maggie and George. But you guys got any questions? Anything you want to know about her brothers or sisters, or? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then we'll call the next episode, Grandma. We're going to talk. Well, we'll go into a little bit about. We want you to talk about your your early childhood memories and just things that you like to do, and we'll talk about that on the next episode when we come the next time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Grandma. Bye.